Welcome, everybody. I hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. Mine consisted again of a hell of a lot of driving. Last weekend for lacrosse tournaments, and I was back again in Delaware on the turf. I felt bad for the kids. It was 100 degrees out on the turf. It was a lot hotter. Let's just leave it at that. I was thinking about this on the way back. Because I was irate. It took me when I left 3.5 hours to get there. On the way back, it was over 5. Why is that? Well, traffic. But we have ridiculous PSAs. We talked about the New York City PSA, how to survive a nuclear attack. Well, I was thinking I should be in charge of PSAs. Yeah. And if I was going to do a PSA, I'd be like, listen, if you're driving slow, please move to the right. Get out of the damn left hand lane. Why? Why do you people do this? You're below the speed limit or you're at the speed limit. It's none of your business if I get a ticket if I'm driving too fast. And do I have a lead foot? Yes. I remember Neil Bortz doing a bit. And I agree. I'm not afraid of the fast drivers. I'm afraid of the slow drivers. These are the same people that try to merge on the highways at 35 miles an hour. It's almost as if we should have a system with driver's licenses where you have to be of a certain competence to drive on highways. If not, you got to go local, okay? Because you're holding up everybody. And then you can't help yourself. You're weaving and you end up passing on the right-hand side and you look over and, both hands on the, come on, get the hell out of the way for crying out loud. Some of us have things to do. Sorry. Anyway, let's get into it. Let's do some business. Big week as far as economic news, Federal Reserve, earnings coming in across the board. And without a doubt, based upon the numbers you're going to see, it's going to drive the market in either direction, A or B. I don't think that there's a C where it's just going to hang around here. I think you're going to have a strong move to the upside or a strong move to the downside. I kind of wish it would hang out here a little bit longer, allow people, or you come down a little bit, allow people to accumulate more stock at lower levels. Last Friday, we got the earnings for Snap. And I don't understand, quite frankly, I don't understand why the hell everybody in the news, oh my God, that was the big news on Friday. It's freaking Snap, man. It's Snap. When that company went public, we told everyone, it's a pump and dump. The insiders are going to make a freaking fortune. Do you even understand how the stock is structured? These companies are structured with the people running the show. I mean, for crying out loud, they've got super majority votes. They control everything. Honestly, all it is a venture capitalist wet dream. It is what it is. Let's get a company that's cool that the kids like and it's got a story behind it. We'll pump it up. We'll get all the insiders out and screw everybody that's left holding a bag. That's one of Wall Street's best businesses. It really is. It's not new. It's the same crap that the boiler room operators are doing. The same crap that the big brokerage firms were doing during the dot-coms. I looked at the business plan for this thing. I was like, you kidding me? Now, the numbers came in at, what was the stock down over 35? I don't even remember. 35, almost 40% in a day. There's a reality here. Okay. It's especially to all you youngsters out there. Because again, I'm getting the stories, I'm getting the phone calls, I'm getting the email, not just in crazy, tech stocks that you went into or meme stocks, but the crypto stuff is getting out of control. People, eventually you have to make money. At some point in time, you need to be in the black. earnings matter. They do. Well, I said this, earnings matter eventually. Yeah, you could trick a lot of people for an extended period of time. You can pump a stock up. You can keep it afloat for an extended period of time. The boiler room operators did that by having their army of stockbrokers pump up the stock, buy these things, and keep it afloat. They weren't allowed to. They didn't want them to sell. They weren't allowed to sell the stock because then it would drop it because there was no real market for it. This is nonsense, people. You can see this a mile away. How many of these things have we called here on the show? All right, it's Snap. And now everybody's, oh my God, look what's going to happen to the tech sector. Look what Snap's numbers. Listen, Snap actually grew the amount of people that use it. I don't use it. My kids do. My kids do, but I think they're on Snap, but I think they're more on Instagram. I don't know. I have an Instagram thing. I barely use it. I really don't know how it works. I'm not kidding. I don't have time for all this nonsense. But anyway, it's got all these people that have signed up. That's all well and good. Oh, that's cute. That's wonderful. It reminded me of back in the 1990s. Back in the 1990s, they used to have this thing. Wall Street used to push, and you'd have all the Wizards of Smart go on CNBC, and they talk about the amount of eyeballs they have on their site. Look at all the eyeballs that company's got. Oh, my God. Look at all the people that are getting onto that. Okay. South Park did an episode on that as well, making fun. They called it like fake dollars based upon views. Basically what it is, eyeballs. That's wonderful. That's great. How do you go about monetizing that? How do you go about turning that in? You got your eyeballs, you got to turn it into money, right? You got your users, Snap. How do you go about making money? When you have an economic slowdown like we're having now, certain companies are actually upping their advertising, but that's one of the first things that people start looking into, where we're going to make some cuts. Now, if you're doing digital advertising, who are you going to go to? If you're making some cutbacks, who are you going to go to? You're going to go to Google, or you're going to go to Snap? Just asking. What would you do? What'd you do? Again, when especially for big corporations, when times are going like gangbusters, they just have their pool of money, and they have their advertising people. They have their people in marketing talk to the advertising people, and these Wizards of Smart advertising people that, quite frankly, don't know shit. Okay, they got a great job. They just take money. Oh, here's your campaign, whatever it may be, and they say we're going to flood everything. It's like carpet bombing advertising. But these companies are so big they can afford to do that. I remember there was some statistic years ago saying how much, a can of Coke, the price of a can of Coke was 75% of it was just marketing costs. So when companies decide they're not going to carpet bomb anymore and they're going to be more surgical, what's going to go first? Snap. Now, again, can Google, can Facebook, and some of these companies benefit from that? Absolutely. No doubt about it. Anyway, AT&T, I want to talk about this last week. I didn't get to it. Americans, they're starting to say that certain people they can't afford to pay their phone bills. Got whacked last week. I looked a little bit further into this. The interesting thing is they added 813,000 phone subscribers. So they're still adding people. Curious to see how they're going to go about dealing with people that are paying late. They're saying it's obviously an issue right now. But again, take a look at some of these things when they pull back, and you got to take a look at their yield and see what they're going to be moving forward. You get this with some of the phone companies. They dip. But if you take a look at the long-term trends, especially the yields involved, depending on your situation, might be an opportunity. Anyway, Blackstone. Hey, everybody hates Blackstone. Why? Well, because they buy up a lot of real estate. Blackstone, and we saw this coming during, after 2008, 2009, Great Recession. They stepped in, they started buying all sorts of distressed real estate. I remember making fun on the show. It was, Obama and all the king's horses and all the king's men trying to put the housing market together again. Their HAMP program, making homes affordable, all these programs we got on here to keep people in homes. Why? Why would you try to keep somebody in a home that they can't afford? They can't afford. What you should do is try to get them out of the home and into a home that they can afford. That makes a hell of a lot more sense. But again, logic and reason do not exist in that dojo known as Washington, D.C. Anyway, Blackstone stepped in. They bought a ton of real estate around the country, and they've done very well with it. They're seeing right now certain areas of the country that they think there's going to be weakness. They got about $50 billion ready to snap up distressed real estate. Buy things on sale. Makes sense every time. I got a kick out of this story. We talked about Mark Cuban here on the program not too long ago. I got into how he originally made his money. And again, it was one of those greater fool deals. He had a greater fool company, and he ended up selling it to Yahoo. Yahoo lost their shirt, lost all the money on it, and he made a ton. And, away he went with that cash and started investing in a myriad of things. Well, it's a very popular show on CNBC called Shark Tank. And it is entertaining. I watched it a few times, and my kids have watched it, and they like it. I like the whole entrepreneurial thing. But what's interesting is that you never go and you take a look at the sharks that are on the program, their batting average. How have they done? How have they done with all of their investments in these startup companies? Well, Cuban admitted that he's spent about $20 million investing in various companies on Shark Tank, and he's lost money. Hasn't made money yet on all of those things. I find it fascinating. Again, I watch the show, and I see some of the things they put on there. And again, it's one of the great things about this country. Being an entrepreneur, it's not easy. It's not easy. And it's a key in life is that you're going to get your ass, you're going to get knocked down. You're going to get knocked on your ass. Pick yourself up, move on. Nicholas Taleb talked about this in one of his books. I can't remember which one, talking about we need an entrepreneurial day, an entrepreneur's day here in the United States. People willing to go out there, take a chance, and go out and risk it all. This is what makes this country great. And this is why we need to get out of entrepreneurs' way. Because again, some are going to make it, some aren't. It all goes back to, and I wrote about this in a column talking about blue chips and blue chips dying. The old Joseph Schumpeter concept, economic concept of creative destruction. Something that is destroyed industries, but something is created at that same time. In essence, like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Cheaper beer and cigarettes gain favor as inflation pinches shoppers. Cheap beer. I'm full disclosure here. What was that? Remember that commercial they had? What was it for Modelo, the most interesting man in the world? I don't always drink beer, but when I do, I beer from time to time. Not a big beer drinker, and I'm sorry. People get into this stuff. They get into their IPAs, the Indian Pale Ale, the IPA. They love these beers. It's, to me, a lot of them are like drinking a loaf of bread. I can't do it. It's just they're too bloody heavy. I don't like feeling like I weigh 300 pounds after I have a beer. I just don't. More the simple type. But anyway, I can imagine. This is going to start hitting some of the craft brewers down there. People are going to start making different choices. It was actually Sam Adams. Their numbers came out, but their problem was due to their hard seltzer. Their hard seltzer, the Truly thing. Have you ever tried that? I'm sorry, it's just gross. It's just it tastes. I try to get my arms around. I've tried a couple of them. It's like you're drinking chemicals. There's nothing. I don't know. That's just me. Anyway, Howard Schultz paying the price for going woke. Yeah. again, we talked about this here on the show. He's most certainly pulling back, and I mentioned, yeah, they're actually full force, full going ahead. They're closing profitable stores. They are closing profitable stores just to, because it's just too untenable, the neighborhoods and what's going on in those places. Again, you sometimes have to think things through. Again, he was reacting at the time. Now, he's a hell of a CEO, but he most certainly screwed up here. And I don't know if you're familiar with the story. There was a couple of people that came into a Starbucks. I think it was in Philadelphia. And they wanted to use the bathroom and they were denied. No, you have to be a customer. And then they wouldn't leave. Then they called the cops. And it turned out, okay, these two people were minorities. Oh my God, to get Al Sharpton, get the bullhorn out there, Al Sharpton. And, the usual suspects coming down, turn it into a big race thing. And, all of a sudden, Howard Schultz says, hey, anybody, Starbucks is going to step in nationwide and we're going to become the nation's public restroom. It got so bad in places around the country that they actually have to have special needle disposal units inside these bathrooms for people that just come in there, vagrants, whatnot, shooting up inside the bathrooms. Now, I can't imagine. I mean, what do you pay? I don't know, Starbucks workers, what do they make? $15, $20 an hour? They got to clean out those dispensers? I don't know. I'm just saying it was a disaster. He knows it's now a disaster. Unintended consequences. Thinking about this, I remember, and again, I used to love his show. I really did. Anthony Bourdain. He had, what was it? No Reservations. No Reservations. What was the name of the one? Oh, I'll think of it in a second. But anyway, not important. He was on CNN. Then it was on Travel Channel. Then he went over to CNN. He was actually CNN's number one program. I remember one episode where he was in Haiti, and he's seeing what's going on in that country, the type of poverty, and they're at some restaurant. They're at some restaurant outdoor. It was like almost like a roadside outdoor place in Haiti, and he all of a sudden said, "You know what? I'm going to pay for everyone's food." Everyone's food in this entire restaurant. He was obviously thrown off by the type of poverty that he was seeing. Turned into a riot. Word got out among everyone, and people started, running in. Everybody wanted the local, and it was just a mad dash. And again, it was something he was trying to do that was nice, but again, he didn't fully think through the consequences. And this is why Washington, D.C., the grand cathedral of unintended consequences. You got all these, I got to help bleeding heart. I want to help too. But again, you have to think these things through first. 75% of middle-class Americans say their income is falling behind the cost of living. No doubt. How could it not? How could it not? I mean, again, middle class in the United States, I think right now, what is it to fall under getting all your health care paid for with Obamacare? I think it's $54,000. Maybe it's a little bit higher at this point. I think it's around that. You may get that taken care of unless your employer takes care of it. You take a look at housing costs. You take a look at your electricity. Again, I was there. At a point in this time where certain parts of my budget, I really had to pay attention to. Energy, whatever it may be. And I hate waste. Gas, all these things. How could it not? Take a look at the cost of food. Last week, I didn't really touch on this. ECB raised rates by a 0.5 percentage point. The euro it was at parity. It was at parity, and I think right now it's about $1.02 to $1. It helps strengthen things to some degree. But again, you're taking a look at a continent. Again, they have one currency, but you have different countries. And certain countries, they have their sovereign debt that the rates are starting to go up. If you remember, this happened back in 2010. where we had the big crisis that took place over there. The European Central Bank says, hey, we're not going to allow that to happen if there starts to be any sort of raid, what they call them, the bond vultures. The bond vultures come in and start hitting some of these smaller countries. The ECB said they're going to step in and start buying the bonds. Again, what did that do? That's inflationary. They're going to be injecting more money into the system. Story today was reading about modern monetary policy and modern monetary theory, MMT. And it was tried and was failed. Now, I mean, again, this is one of those things, sky is blue as water is wet. You had academics, you had people, you had professors claiming that there's basically no consequences to the government printing as much money as they want, as long as you had the available resources to purchase with stuff with that money. Actually, that's the MMT people are saying right now. They're saying, we didn't have enough production going on. Actually believe that you can print your way out of any situation is patently absurd. Patently absurd. And that's what we have been doing, and it hasn't worked. White House this past weekend comes out and starts talking about, because they know we're getting that's one of the economic bits of news this week is the GDP report. And when's that coming? Friday? Thursday? Friday? I don't know. Whether or not it's going to be negative second quarter. They're already hedging themselves, saying, hey, listen, we get 2 quarters of negative economic growth. Doesn't mean we're in a recession. Doesn't. Now, it fits. It's part of the criteria. There's no doubt about that. But the White House is saying the economy is too strong and the unemployment numbers are too low for it to be a recession. And you know what? I would tend to agree with that. Based just following rules, technicals, yeah. But again, you're gonna find people. We get 2 quarters of negative economic growth. It's going to be out there for political fodder. There's no doubt about that. Anyway, Kimberly Strassel. Again, I cover things here on the program, and magically, they get covered in other publications. Now, I'm not saying that Kimberly Strassel listens to this show and does it, but again, I'm glad to see that we've got some people that are actually thinking alike. At least some people within the Wall Street Journal. By the way, the Wall Street Journal. I look at it this morning. You know what their top story was? The top story was whether or not Elon Musk, they have a story saying that Elon Musk slept with Sergey Brin, who was one of the founders of Google, wife, when they were separated. And all of this stuff, now Musk has come out and said absolutely not. This story's a hit job, whatever it may be. I don't know either way. But it's a freaking Wall Street Journal. I don't give a crap. It's none of my business. And trust me, okay, I'm sorry. I knew this was going to happen. You have all of these big media conglomerates out there. They should have never let Murdoch buy the Wall Street Journal. Never. Anyway, Kimberly Strassel piece here. What do you get when you cross a Republican with a tech lobbyist? A bipartisan boondoggle. The question is how long the GOP can get away with its posturing on fiscal restraint. She's talking about the CHIPS bill that they say it's $76 billion when all said and done. Could be upwards of $250 billion, all in the name of promoting innovation. Let me ask you a question. We have any problem in this country coming up with stuff? Have we had any sort of lack of innovation here in this country? Now, again, certain companies have kind of fallen off some of the leaders, I think, in the past, and they've obviously got to get with it. But again, they're great minds here in this country. And if you get out of the way and allow people to innovate, we'll be fine. But no, the government wants to get involved. The legislation directs government agencies to assist in the development of tech sectors, meaning bureaucrats will funnel the dollars to private companies. Line up at the trough. private companies. Make sure you cut a check. Make sure you cut a check to my PAC. Make sure, when you come to my fundraiser in Georgetown in Washington, D.C., that punch bowl in the middle, make sure you put an envelope in there so you can get your government money, which is not true. It's not government money. It's my money. It's your money. Again, you try to show me where in the Constitution it allows for politicians to take our money, take it, and give it to private concerns. Last time I checked, we do have this place. It's called Wall Street, where you can go, and if you need money, you can get it. You can raise money if you have a good idea, and oftentimes bad ideas, and you can get money. You can be financed. But hey, it's much better where you don't have to pay the money back and you just take it from your fellow taxpayer. I'm done with this. I was batting this thing back and forth in my mind. I mentioned this last week in regards to national security concerns and not having enough chips, whatever it may be. I'm sorry. You can work with these companies and you can tell them to start moving this stuff back here. You can. You can. There's better ways of doing this. You don't have to give away cash. You don't. So, yeah, I don't agree with this. And again, what do we get? 16 Republicans? 16 Republicans sign off on this. Strauss writes, this is Republican business as usual. The GOP that is assisting in this $250 billion spendathon is the same GOP that last year voted for the $1 trillion infrastructure boondoggle. By the way, my potholes still haven't been filled on the freaking Long Island Expressway. The same GOP that in 2020 signed on not to one, not two, three, four, but 5 COVID relief bills. $3.5 trillion. It's under Trump. $3.5 trillion. That's same Republican Party cut taxes in 2017, but blew through discretionary spending caps. This is the same Republican Party, the same elephants that has re-embraced earmarks. Yeah, well, again, you'll see this. They'll start yelling and screaming. And hey, Joe Biden spent $1.9 trillion. And again, there was no doubt about it. It was completely unnecessary. We get that, and Republicans gripe about that. But after they're done, they're back to spending again. Strasser writes, when was the last time anyone heard a Republican talk about the need to reform Social Security or Medicare? That disappeared with the election of Donald Trump. Yeah. Instead, growing faction of the party sees a future in buying the votes of working and middle-class voters with costly new entitlement proposals of their own, such as expanded child tax credit. You got Mike Lee and Marco Rubio that want to hand out cash. Again, it's like an FM station. We're giving away cash. Who wants to dwell on the painful budget or welfare reform when Republicans can promote their values by doling out federal cash? Some will note that only 16 Republicans voted to advance the new innovation blowout, that the significant majority of the 50-strong GOP caucus remains opposed, but 16 is still a lot, especially for a party that claims a core belief in limited government. The number is a function of a party leadership that is no longer making a top priority of fiscal restraint, giving license to spenders, that and outside conservative groups that are increasingly focusing on the culture wars rather than the threat of big government. Again, what do we focus on here? We focus on culture wars. Yeah, we talk about societal stuff from time to time. But again, we're libertarians here. We want to limit the size of government. The political risks of this GOP spending habit are huge, both in the short and long run. Republicans correctly blame the Democrats' 2021 spending for today's inflation, and public fury over high prices makes for their best shot at retaking the House and Senate this fall. but the potency of the inflation argument will dissipate if the GOP joins yet another spending frenzy. The next time a Republican runs an ad hammering a Democrat for inflation, the target will simply remind voters that it was a bipartisan effort that produced the vast majority of COVID and beyond spending. Again, I agree wholeheartedly with Kimberly. And again, I'm not a member of the Republican Party. And this is one of the reasons why I left years and years ago. I was thinking about it. I remember when the whole Tea Party concept came up, and there started to be rallies around the country. Again, Tea Party, taxed enough already. Again, the media turned it into some sort of right-wing extremist group, and it started out great. It started out great because they didn't allow politicians. They didn't allow politicians to get involved. They didn't allow them to come to any of the rallies. It was the largest audience I ever had public speaking. It was thousands of people. And I started off and I said, quite frankly, I went off on a litany of things. I said, I'm more angry with? I'm more angry with the Republicans. I'm more angry with the elephants because they say they're going to do things and they don't. They don't. They don't follow through. Anyway, have a wonderful day, everybody. Watchdog on wallstreet.com, Watchdog on wallstreet.com. Again, I got to keep reminding, it's funny. I mentioned it on the podcast, but man, I guess, I can take it as a compliment. If I miss a day where I don't do the podcast, where are you? What happened? I'm like, I told you I had to take my son on a recruiting thing and tournament, lacrosse, all that stuff. Guys, I appreciate it, but some days I got to take off. And just so you know, Thursday, I'm out of here, going on vacation. And I will on vacation eventually. You got to give me a week away. But what I do on my vacations, because I really don't get to get away over the course of the year. We tend to have, because our kids are heavily involved in sports most of the summer. We're busy chasing them around from place to place. Everybody's done at the beginning of August, and that's when we get away for 2.5, 3 weeks. And we don't really go away for Christmas. Anyway, what I do is I take a week off. I need just mental health. I have to decompress. I have to put the phone down. I got to get away from some of these things. I need just to relax for about a week, and then after that, hour or two early in the morning before everybody's up, I'll start putting in, and I'll start doing some podcasts and some stuff at that point in time. Because I admit it, I do start to miss it as well. Anyway, God bless everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.